Hello friends, welcome back. Let us continue with our discussion for our module 12, that is positive organizational scholarship. Today I am going to talk about another aspect of positive organizational scholarship or POS, that is workplace spirituality. This is a burgeoning area of research in organizational behavior which is beyond concern for organizational outcomes or performance or productivity. It is something which is concerns to the values, beliefs and practices within the organizational settings that give more peace, calmness and stability in the emotions of the employees. So, this concept, that is workplace spirituality, is something which is related to an individual's state of transcendence, which is over and above the work that an individual perceives. It is about meaningfulness, that how an individual perceives meaningfulness and connectedness to his soul, or maybe not to his work, but it is initially the soul. So, when we talk about workplace spirituality, it acknowledges that individuals bring their complete selves to work and encompasses the spiritual convictions, that is how deeply you are involved in the work that touches your soul. The soul in terms of compassion, truth, gratitude and love that guide your moral reasoning, inner growth and focuses on the inner experience. So, what you experience after work, it is not only experiencing professional growth after your performance, it is beyond what you experience, that to what extent you have contributed to the society, what the kind of satisfaction you derive when you contribute to the society through your work, that is spirituality. It is about connectedness, it is about your beliefs that you have practiced or the work has given that opportunity to practice at work and contribute to the society. So, it is about the spiritual convictions, which means the principles like compassion, truth, gratitude and love that guide inner growth and moral behavior, focusing on the inner experience, right, rather than material possessions or outward success. As I mentioned just now, that it is beyond organizational performance, organizational success or benchmark, that what you have to achieve and what beyond you can achieve, which has a significant impact on employees' attitudes and behaviors in the workplace. It is also not about interpersonal relationship, it is how you tend to derive your own self out of the work. So, workplace spirituality recognizes that people have an inner life that is nourished by meaningful work in the context of community, that is meaningfulness and how and to what extent that work you are doing have given you the opportunity to return back to the society. Therefore, organizations that promote spiritual culture recognize that people seek to find meaning and purpose in their work and desire to connect with other human beings as part of community. So, what incorporates workplace spirituality? It is about inner life connection, sense of community, connectedness, compassion, transcendence that is experienced beyond normal. You have been assigned a task, you are completing it. This is one aspect, that the task that has been assigned to any employee, that you start and complete and you have attained your objective. But once you complete, we tend to assess our inner growth, to what extent it was meaningful for myself, it was meaningful for the organization and to what extent it is going to impact the whole community. So, when any task that is impacting the society and the community to a larger extent, that gives you a sense of pride, your belief is being supported that your work is meaningful and you have been part of that meaningful task, right. So, beyond normal and mindfulness in the workplace, that means any job that has been assigned to an individual employee, he has that ability to perceive that meaning in the work and perform that work in a way that you are connected to the work without understanding or realizing or not concerned about the results. The only concern is that how it brings satisfaction and happiness to oneself and to the other person or community. So, it is about detaching oneself from the material success and attaching yourself to the inner growth through your work. So, it is about not engineering, it is rather inner engineering, that how you are growing internally in sense of happiness, connectedness to the self, how you have grown internally while giving more to the community. So, organizations such as Southwest Airlines, Hewlett Packard, Ford, the Men's Warehouse, Tyson Foods, Weatherill Associates and Toms of Maine have in common. They are among a growing number of organizations that have embraced workplace spirituality through their practices. So, why there is a reason for the growing interest in spirituality? There are several reasons that why an individual want to experience spirituality at work, not practicing separately, but they are trying to combine spirituality with their work. They want to practice the same belief at work. So, what are the reasons that this area of workplace spirituality is gaining more prominence in organizational settings? So, the first reason is that spirituality has the ability to counterbalance the pressures and stress of a turbulent pace of life. This is but obvious, the most important and most common experience of employees, that how the life becomes so entangled with job that they do not find any time off, and that can give them peace. So, in order to find that peace, inner calmness or connectedness and mindfulness, that is detaching from the external world and the outcomes, people are now more focusing on this spirituality, which helps them to believe in themselves, practice their belief through their work, and then experience spirituality. Rather than going outside somewhere else to practice spirituality or how to realize their beliefs and values, whatever beliefs and values they have, they realize and come into practice through their work. Contemporary lifestyles such as single parent families, geographic mobility, the temporary nature of jobs, new technologies that create distance between people underscore the lack of community, and many people feel and increase the need for involvement and connection. So, this tend to focus on the fast pace of life and the different situations of employees, rather than focusing more in a collective manner the personal domains of life of employees, and how spirituality at work can help to balance and focus on the maladies of the personal professional life through spirituality at work. So, when more beliefs and values are being practiced at work through work, there is more connection to oneself, to the work, that has a transcendence impact. Further, job demands have made the workplace dominant in many people's life, yet they continue to question the meaning of work. That means more than 50% of an individual's life is spent at work, but without realizing that how work will not contribute to the inner connection. Therefore, employees have started relating themselves with the work so that they perceive meaning, they perceive some sense of contribution to the society that gives them more connectedness and growth. The other reason is that people want to integrate personal life values with the professional life. It is about not only counterbalance, it is about work-life balance, not only through managing life between personal and professional domains. It is more about that how practicing one's own values and beliefs in a way that it tends to balance the experience of connectedness even at personal domain and professional domain. So, organizations are coming up with different kind of activities, policies and procedures where individuals have their own way to perform their tasks, so that it is not only the task is completed, they can craft their job in a way that can give them some kind of connection to oneself and meaningfulness. And the last is that increasing number of people are finding that the pursuit of more material acquisitions leaves them unfulfilled. So, whenever an individual employee realizes to practice his values and beliefs at work, the immediate realization that takes place is that material acquisitions and possessions are secondary, and what is more important is mental peace, calmness, inner growth and wholeness in life. That how that life is completed. Just achieving material success is just a fakeness in the life that just covers up the reality, and when the reality is being realized, ultimately it is about inner connection and growth. So, what are the specific outcomes of workplace spirituality? So, researchers have identified some specific outcomes in terms of well-being, in terms of motivations, in terms of commitment, in terms of value-based leadership, that is spiritual leadership. So, the first is that spirituality of workplace is vital for weaving together vision, hope, faith and selfless love into the fabric of the organizational culture. For example, we have already discussed about citizenship behaviors, that helping the co-worker in finishing the task. But what is the objective under such citizenship behaviors? That we are just focusing on organizational tasks to be completed. But if we are contributing to the organizational task by helping the other co-worker, then that purpose should be beyond organizational tasks. It is about the sense of satisfaction that a person derives while helping the other person. So, it is about value, hope, faith and sense of togetherness. So, that promotes spiritual culture within organizations. So, this not only promotes the well-being of employees, but also harmonizes personal values with the mission of the organization, which in turn boost motivation and commitment. So, the more inner calmness, happiness and meaningfulness is achieved while helping the other person, the more the person becomes committed to the organization, because that organization has provided that scope and platform to the employees in order to experience and practice your values, beliefs and ideas. The most important outcome is that it fosters spiritual leadership. It is value based leadership, a philosophy that emphasizes meaning, purpose and hope by connecting with individuals' spiritual needs through a focus of inner wisdom, authenticity and values like altruistic love. So, realizing oneself that what gives you inner happiness and growth, and realizing that the other person also needs the same experience, that other also person needs to realize his values and beliefs, and how an employee can help the other employee to realize those values and bring it into function through work. That is spiritual leadership. So, that is the essence, the outcome, that when goodness is fostered through each other, then values and beliefs comes into function, that again that leads to emergence of spiritual leadership. The third outcome is that it motivates people intrinsically by providing a sense of calling, that is making a difference, and membership leading to greater well-being, commitment, which is vital for their holistic well-being. So, this holistic well-being contributes to professional satisfaction, personal satisfaction, and on top of that, that is spiritual connectedness. So, all in all, when spirituality is practiced at work, it not only concerns the achievement of task or motivation or commitment, it is about to what extent any organization is giving that opportunity, the platform to the employees to have belief in their ideas, values and beliefs, and how they can practice. So, there is a sense of togetherness. At the same time, they take the pride in themselves that the organizations have given them that freedom to perceive their work as meaningful and calling based on the values and beliefs. The other outcome is that spirituality at workplace caters to personal spiritual needs and fosters intrinsic motivation while nurturing a sense of purpose and community at work. These elements are essential for sustaining high morale and a strong sense of responsibility within the organizations. Even while being conscious about the organization's policies, rules, regulations, that consciousness should not only be pertaining to the organizational outcomes, this consciousness should also expand to what extent it will impact the other employees. How your decision making is going to impact the other person in terms of well-being, that is more important. So, decision making based on values, decision making based on beliefs will not only impact positively the work outcome, but also it has positive impact on the employees. Yes, it can also enhance employee morale by improving personal self-efficacy and build interpersonal trust, both of which are crucial for intrinsic motivation. This enhances employees' spiritual well-being by fostering stronger unity and loyalty within the organization, which ultimately cultivates a more enthusiastic and involved workforce. So, this fosters another values and beliefs. There is a positive spiral, upward spiral, that not only one value and belief is fostered, it fosters another value such as respect, integrity, morality, ethicality, authenticity. So, once value is being fostered, it leads to a spiral well-being of individual among employees in terms of other values and morality that is pertinent to organizational functioning. Besides this, several culture characteristics tend to be evident in spiritual organizations. That means why organizational cultures are turning to be spiritual organizations. So, they have initiated a culture within organizations that how it should be performed. So, the first culture is culture of benevolence, that is kindness towards others and promoting the happiness of employees and other organizational stakeholders. So, what brings happiness to an employee at work? It is not only productivity or performance, it is about that how the employee has the freedom to craft his job in a way that he or she can practice his ideas, values and beliefs. That is kindness of the organizations to foster spirituality. So, this creates a culture within organizations. The other is strong sense of purpose. Spiritual organizations build their cultures around a meaningful purpose. Although profits may be important, they are not the primary value of the organizations. So, what you are performing should not be only restricted to a thought that it lead to organizational task or performance. It should be that how it is going to impact the whole organization, how it is going to impact the well-being of the employees and how it is going to impact the whole community and the society. So, perceiving meaning in the work, to what extent you can contribute, to what extent the job is also contributing and how those contributions are having a positive impact on the inner and outer world of an individual employee. The other is trust and respect. Spiritual organizations are characterized by mutual trust, honesty and openness. Employees are treated with esteem and value consistent with the dignity of each individual. So, this counts on respect and integrity of the employees. So, employees who are respectful and have high sense of integrity, they are also being recognized and respected by the organizations, which again leads to a spiraling of positive emotions and morality. And the other is open mindedness, that spiritual organizations value flexible thinking and creativity among employees. So, the more the employees can craft their jobs in a way that they are practicing their values and beliefs, it also brings lot of flexibility and acceptance of the situations where they mold themselves in a way that the spiritual self is being emanated. So, this is all because of the organizational procedures that makes the organization more flexible and fosters more flexibility among employees. Alright, so what are the outcomes? Again, from the psychology point of view, what are the outcomes of workplace spirituality? It is observed that it mitigates the adverse impacts of mistreatment, incivility and emotional burnout, providing a psychological buffer against job related stresses. So, any employee who perceives some kind of distrust or any kind of dilemma at workplaces, but if he or she has the freedom to practice his own values and beliefs based on his spiritual quotient or content he carries in his job, then this tends to mitigate the adverse effects of incivility on an individual. This gives more flexibility and freedom to an individual to buffer the impact of all the negative elements in the work environment. The other outcome is that it acts as a mediating element in nurturing ethical practices and organizational citizenship while discouraging non-productive behaviors. As I mentioned earlier, that when you are practicing your ideas, beliefs, values, morality and ethicality, then the focus is not only on organizational tasks, but actually the focus is that how and to what extent the performance, the tasks should be performed in a way that it contains the lucidity of spirituality in terms of goodness, in terms of integrity, in terms of profitability. The extensive research highlights that workplace spirituality is a vital element in improving employee well-being, ethical standards and organizational success. Thinking about right and wrong will definitely support one's own belief, and one's own belief is practiced, it fosters only positive patterns of behavior. Thus, spirituality at workplace creates a positive organizational culture which emphasizes building on employee strengths and emphasizes individual vitality and growth. Vitality means the inner growth, that what is significant for you. The more significance is there for goodness at workplace, your vitality increases, the essence increases. Alright, the other aspect of positive organizational scholarship is work engagement. Work engagement or employee engagement, they are used interchangeably, but it has become a buzzword in business and consultancy and at the same time in the area of organizational behavior or in academics. So, the phrases employee engagement and work engagement are typically used interchangeably, and we prefer the latter because it is more specific. Why it is more specific? If we talk about work engagement, it refers to the relationship of the employee with his or her work, whereas employee engagement may also include the relationship with the organization. So, but when we are focusing only on work engagement, that means we are simply focusing that to what extent work is engaging or absorbing of an individual. The more an individual employee is absorbed, immersed in the work, the more it emanates positive attitudes of behavior. So, what is the concept of work engagement? So, it refers to involvement, commitment, passion, enthusiasm, absorption, focused effort and energy, and in a similar vein this describes emotional involvement or commitment and as the state of being in gear. It is about in flow, in gear, in immersion where you find difficulty to detach from your work. So, the more there is involvement, more is commitment in the work, the more we are eager to spend our energy and efforts, we invest an energy and efforts in that task because we are immersed in that work, because we have related ourselves to that work in a thorough psychological manner. We are harnessing ourselves to that work and find difficulty in detaching from it. So, what is engagement in business? So, this term has different connotations. In business, it has different connotations. In organizational behavior, it has different connotations. If we talk about that what is engagement in business, then examples can be of Development Dimensions International. It is an OB research organization where they have identified engagement which has three dimensions: cognitive, affective and behavioral. Cognitive engagement is like belief in and support for the goals and values of the organization. So, how you perceive the work, how you perceive the goal and how you value the goal. So, the more the perception is positive and you align with the values of yourself and work values and the value of the job, we are more into that task. Affective, that is sense of belongingness, pride and attachment to the organization. The more the organization is successful and we are attached to that organization, the pride also increases and we also have that commitment, that is normative commitment to be associated with that organization and continue to work. So, this commitment and value of the organization will make the employee more engaged in his or her work. And the third is behavioral, that willingness to go the extra mile, intention to stay with the organization. It is the commitment of an organization based on several factors which gives more positivity to the environment and to the employee, that the individual find very easy to attach himself or herself to that task and then keep on working. So, cognitive, affective and behavioral components of engagement are being considered as work engagement in business organizations. For example, Hewitt, another organization, they have considered engagement at three levels: say, stay and strive. Say, consistently speak positively about the organizations to co-workers, potential employees and customers. So, you tend to perceive your organization so positive that you continuously speak positive and good about the organization. This reflects your engagement with the organization, and the other members also get influenced by your engagement. So, saying positive and giving positive connotations to the organizations adds more engagement in individuals' employee behavior. Stay, have an intense desire to be a member of the organization despite opportunities to work elsewhere. So, it is more attachment to the organization and work. The more positive environment is there, the more the person enjoys the work, the more the person is attached to his work and finds complete immersion. So, this is about staying within the organization because of work. And the third is strive, exert extra time, effort and initiative to contribute to business success. So, the more the organization is successful, the more organization is positive, the more eager an individual employee is to invest efforts, knowledge, skill and abilities to initiate the task and contribute to the organization. Towers-Perrin has defined employee engagement as personal satisfaction and a sense of inspiration and affirmation they get from work and being a part of organization. So, it is about sense of inspiration and affirmation, that is what they seek within the organization, they tend to practice the same, they tend to say the same about organization to the outer world. So, this is employee engagement. So, it is personal satisfaction, the more you are satisfied personally with your work, the more you are engaged and more difficulty it is to detach from the work. Mercer is another organization, and they have defined employee engagement as commitment or motivation, and refers to a psychological state where employees feel a vested interest in the company's success and perform to a high standard that may exceed the stated requirements of a job. So, because of the positive environment of the organization, even the employees are ready to invest their time, effort and skills in order to maintain the high standards of their performance in organization and go beyond their performance in order to stay with the organization. So, the point is that when we are talking about employee engagement in business environment, they have different connotations. Say, stay and strive, it is about personal satisfaction, it is about cognitive, affective and behavioral aspect, but ultimately it is about an individual's desire to stay connected with the work, first with the work and then with the organization. This is about employee engagement as defined by business organizations, right. So, these descriptions may differ at a first glance. A closer look reveals that in essence engagement is defined in terms of commitment, right, more particularly effective commitment, that is the emotional attachment to the organization, and continuous commitment, that is the desire to stay with the organization. It is more of commitment, and extra role behavior, that is citizenship behaviors or the discretionary behaviors that promotes the effective functioning of the organization, right. And yes, what about employee engagement in academia? That is about instance in organizational behavior. It is about harnessing of organizational members' selves to their work roles. In engagement, people employ and express themselves physically, cognitively, emotionally and mentally during role performances. So, the point is that when we are talking about employee engagement in academia, it is not only about commitment or citizenship behaviors, it is about complete immersion in terms of oneself in the job, in terms of physical involvement, cognitive involvement, emotional and mental involvement during role performances. So, it is a deep down immersion of an individual to the work, because that is somewhere we can say that you fall in love with your job, then only you can get the outcomes. So, this is the stage when we tend to say that engagement is taking place in this organization. So, in other words, engaged employees put a lot of effort into their work because they identify it. Now, they are identifying it because they are aligning with their values, they are aligning with their goals, they are aligning with their knowledge, skills and abilities. Who was the first person to define employee engagement? So, Kahan in the 1980 defined this term and defined a dynamic dialectical relationship that exists between the person who drives personal energies, that is physical, cognitive, emotional and mental, into his or her work role on the other one hand, and the work role that allows the person to express him or herself on the other hand. So, when you are immersed in your work, you automatically get that freedom to express yourself into that work. So, that brings lot of creativity. Not only about organizational tasks to be performed, it also brings your individual creativity and that expands the organizational performances and outcomes. So, what is a different approach to work engagement? It is not only work engagement. If you say that I am completely into work, then it can also lead to burnout, but actually it is antithesis of burnout. In burnout, there is a point when you break down and there is sense of detachment from the work, but when it is about employee engagement, the employee finds difficulty in detaching from the work. So, this is the difference. So, when we talk about employee engagement, it is actually an antithesis of burnout. So, those who suffer from burnout, engaged employees have a sense of energetic and effective connection with their work. Instead of stressful and demanding, they look upon their work as challenging. So, engaged employees will perceive their work as an opportunity, and a stressed employee will perceive their work as challenging, because they are detaching from the work, but an engaged employee is perceiving an opportunity, and at the same time the employee is attaching to the job physically, emotionally, mentally and psychologically. So, that is the difference between burnout and employee engagement. So, there are two different schools of thought that exist when we consider work engagement. So, what is that school? So, Mashlash and later argued in the case of burnout that energy turns into exhaustion involvement turns into cynicism and efficacy turns into ineffectiveness. See the difference between burnout and work engagement. While engagement is characterized by energy, involvement and efficacy and the direct opposites of the three burnout dimensions. So, whenever an employee who gets stressed, he loses interest in the job, he tends to detach from the job itself, does not find any interest in performing the job, right. But if it is engagement, there is more energy, there is more involvement and efficacy. So, definitely when we are talking about engagement, we are also talking about burnout, and the major difference is in burnout the employee detaches from the work, and in engagement the employee finds lot of difficulty in detaching from the work. So, consequently work engagement is defined in its own right as a positive, fulfilling work related state of mind that is characterized by vigor, dedication and absorption. So, it refers to a more persistent and pervasive effective cognitive state. You are emotionally aroused when you are engaged because you are relating to the job. You perceive your job as an opportunity, as a platform to unleash your creativity. So, there is more effective and cognitive base to the concept of work engagement. So, what are the other three aspects of engagement, that is the elements, what constitutes engagement. So, Shoffley has identified three elements of engagement: vigor, dedication and absorption. Vigor, it is characterized by high levels of energy and mental resilience while working, the willingness to invest effort in one's work and persistence even in the face of difficulties, because there is so much of involvement in the work that even the difficulties does not seem to be difficult. They are in so much into the flow that they have invested all their knowledge, skills and abilities to that extent that even any difficulty is not perceived by any employee. That is vigor. Dedication, it is about strongly involved in one's work and experiencing a sense of significance, enthusiasm, inspiration, pride and challenge. So, even the task is challenge, it is about perception that a challenging job has been assigned to him for which he is capable to do that. He takes more pride in that, there is more significance and association with that job which brings more enthusiasm. This is dedication. And absorption, that it leads to full concentration and is engrossed into one's work, whereby time passes quickly and one has difficulties with detaching oneself from the work. As I mentioned when talking about burnout and work engagement. So, vigor, dedication and absorption, these are the elements of work engagement, which is a positive state of mind where the person is immersed in his work cognitively and effectively. So, what are the key drivers of work engagement? What leads to work engagement? It is not that the work has been assigned and an employee is engaged. There has to be certain background resources and drivers which leads to work engagement. The first is job resources, that is aspects of the job that reduce demands and help employees achieve goals such as opportunities for professional development, positive social support and a sense of belongingness. When these factors are available in the work environment, it fosters work engagement. So, these are the resources which are being availed by an employee through the organization. They are right to avail those resources in order to keep their job upfront. Job demands, responsibilities or challenges that require effort and energy, thus a balance of resource and demands is crucial. So, if responsibilities are there and at the same time challenges are also there and more importantly resources are there, then there is a balance between demand and resource. So, this crucial aspect when is balanced well by the employee, then it leads to involvement, that resources are flowing and even the demand which is very challenging is then perceived as opportunity, and when so much of energy is invested, efforts are invested in the task, then ultimately it leads to engagement. Organizational culture, that is strong leadership, culture that values employee well-being and growth contribute to engagement. This is the outcome of the engagement that any individual employee would experience and that defines the culture. So, that keeps an employee engaged. And the other is job crafting, that employees actively reshaping their work, task and relationship to better align with their needs and interest. So, it is about the freedom or autonomy that an individual takes in crafting his job, performing his job on his own terms while focusing on the task and then fully immersed in that job. So, this is all about pertaining to the culture that allows an individual with so much of flexibility and openness that it becomes a key driver of work engagement. So, job resource, job demand, organizational culture and crafting all in all contributes to work engagement. What is the importance of benefits of work engagement? So, it leads to increased productivity and performance. This is but obvious that engagement leads to enhanced performances and increased productivity and better business outcomes, higher employee retention with optimum resources and positive culture or work environment. This leads to reduced turnover and increased retention, that employees can retain the talent, employees can retain the employees based on high levels of work engagement. Enhanced innovation and creativity, when job crafting is possible, then it provides a platform to the employees to get immersed in the job to an extent that the creativity is unleashed. So, outcomes become better. Improves customer satisfaction, the positivity and dedication of engaged employees are often reflected in the customer service they provide, which help them stronger customer relationship and loyalty. So, the more they are dedicated to their jobs, the more they are associated with the customers, the more positive relationship they maintain with the customers, that induces more customer relationship within the organizations and helps in capturing the market. Reduced absenteeism and burnout, the difference we have already discussed about burnout and engagement, and at the same time there is reduced absenteeism. So, engaged employees are more likely to have better physical and mental health, leading to lower rates of absenteeism and risk of burnout. And stronger organizational culture, high engagement fosters a positive and collaborative work culture, increasing morale and promoting a sense of camaraderie and respect. The more engagement is there, the more the person makes efforts to unleash maximum resources to avail in order to perform the job. So, this also entails maintaining positive interpersonal relationship, having more approachability towards themselves and to other persons in order to get the task done or to perform the task. So, that promotes a sense of respect or camaraderie and positive interpersonal relationships. And how to improve work engagement? Foster open communication, it builds more trust and transparency. The more trust and transparency is there, the more confidence an employee develops about the organization. That trust is there, then ultimately the person is more relating to the organizational cultures, provide growth opportunities, that is providing more resources and professional development opportunities and opening more career paths for the employees. For instance, professional development is valued or maybe upgrading their knowledge for better performances, recognize and reward achievements. The more recognition and achievement is there for the employees, the more they respect and understand the organizational philosophy that keeps them going with the organization. Empower employees with autonomy, it pertains to taking decisions in their own way or maybe increased decision latitude and autonomy to take decisions and have a more mastery on the environment. Support employee well-being, that is promote a healthy work-life balance through flexible hours, wellness programs and mental health resources, where there is more space and policies for the employees to experience work-life balance that gives more balance and peace to an individual's work life, and cultivating a strong company culture, that is reinforcing company employees and promote an inclusive and positive environment where employees feel they belong. So, it is about the different sections of the society to be inclusive at workplaces, that gives them more space to use the resources to unleash their culture. The more opportunities are there, so the more the culture is fostered as an engaged culture. These are just few ways to improve engagement. There can be n number of policies and procedures in favor of employees to foster work engagement at workplaces. But yes, these are the basic ones. Even any organization is fulfilling these criteria can be on the path or track of creating an engaged workforce, right. So, this is about workplace spirituality and work engagement. We will talk about some other aspects of positive organizational scholarship in the next class. Thank you so much.